Another good indicator of the fact that the cannabis industry has arrived is when you have Deloitte. And so we have Nadav Gill and we have Jennifer Lee. Please welcome Nadav and Jennifer to the stage.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're
okay.
okay. You're okay.
Just checking.
My name is Nadav Gill. I'm leading the cannabis practice in Israel in the last 2 years. Jennifer Lee, great that you come here to Israel. What exactly do you do for Deloitte?
So great to have me to be here. I'm a partner in the Canadian practice. I've actually been leading the cannabis sector for Deloitte, both in Canada and globally, working very closely with Nadav. Our practitioners work all over the world. Just to give you an example of the type of work we're doing is we help stand up the cannabis businesses for the Alberta government, the BC government, and the Ontario government in Canada. We serve most of the LPs. We serve the alcohol companies in addition to the consumer package companies or product companies that want to enter the space. And we're doing a lot of work down in the US now that the Farm Bill has passed. And so I lead one of the global practices working with all of our member firms. We have about 100 practices that are working in the space.
So, as you can understand, Deloitte is in the business many years. 5 or 6 years is plenty of time when we're talking about the cannabis industry and the way it goes on. Deloitte Canada actually works with the biggest LPs since 2013, and it took it as a strategic decision to focus in this industry. Today, actually, we work as, I'm going to show you a short map, as a global network with partners from the most advanced countries that the cannabis become legal. Canada, of course, leads this, and Jen, you have an amazing role in leading this practice, because when we have all the knowledge, and we know what's exactly going on in the different places in the world, we can, of course, assist clients going global. I would like to ask you a little bit to hear about your insight on the last 48 hours. We've been back to back with meetings. We are not sleeping. We're just meeting amazing companies. And I think that you have a lot of insights and things to say about what you knew about what Israel could be to the global, to the global market, and on a perspective of big clients, not necessarily the LPs, but companies that comes from the beverages and the retail and the cosmetics and the textile, the big clients that understand that cannabis is disruptive and what they can gain from it. So
it's interesting because I'm coming from Canada, which legalized in October, and I'm a consumer retail partner. And I don't think I fully appreciated the bench strength that Israel has, both on the research, the scientific research side, and on the analytics side, and the amount of IP coming out of the country. If I just summarize my last 2 days, I think I've met with 15 clients since I got here Sunday afternoon. And I would summarize it as a hidden gem, because what I've observed is there's so much IP and knowledge here. The question is, how do you commercialize it? With so much, you have academics, and you have scientists, and you have researchers, how does the rest of the world get access to this? And I think right now the reason it's underappreciated around the world, in my observation, is because the early stage markets around the world are just trying to get the regulations stood up, and they're just trying to get up and running. I believe that Israel is going to play a huge role in the world if you so choose, because what I'm seeing with clients is that cultivation is really a commodity exercise. Stating the obvious, Canada is not an obvious place to grow cannabis. And so, the amount of capital and labor and water and energy that's involved does not give us a competitive advantage. I'm doing an assignment right now for a global consumer product company in the cannabis space, and the question that we're trying to answer is, A, where do our customers overlap in our categories? And second, what are the organic and inorganic plays that we're going to make in the cannabis market? And our conclusion is it's IP-based. So it's not going to be going and building a grow up. It's not going to be retail. I really think it's going to be IP based for the next probably 3 to 5 years. If you look at 2018, there were 700 deals that happened last year, and about 75 to 85% of it was in the cultivation space. So you're going to start to see the deals and the capital that's being raised be in the IP area, in my opinion. And I think that that creates the stickiness and the competitive advantage for these organizations in the market. I speak to many companies in different categories. So alcohol, very, very obvious that they come into the market. And according to our Deloitte research, there's double-digit erosion that's going to happen in the alcohol space, and which is they are very much protecting their market. We're doing work in tobacco, and tobacco is trying to decide if it's going to be a substitute or an adjacency to their category. And for the edibles market, which is going to legalize in Canada in October, the question everyone's trying to answer is, should the baked goods and confectionery companies start moving in? But then how do they solve for consistency? How do they solve for shelf life, even down to dosage? This is not their core competency, and that's where IP comes into the game.
Israel in many fields is leading in innovation in many, many years in agriculture, in defense, in other, blockchain. There's many areas where Israel is advanced and a pioneer. I think in the cannabis technologies is really even stronger because the situation in the States. Because the federal law is still not in line with the states, and you don't see R&D investments from the government to the hospitals, and the R&Ds there is, let's say, in a garage, not formally. Israel need to understand, and we understand it's very good, that it's we have this opportunity for maybe few years more until the federal law will be in line in the states. We think it's going to take 2, 3, or 4 years more, but until then, you don't see startups, you don't see enough innovation. Every time that I'm going traveling to the States and Canada, I'm asking you guys and my partners from Deloitte, is it true if you don't see innovation outside of Israel? And this is exactly what we advise our clients, to focus on the technologies that will make them be a pioneer in a certain area, because the cannabis technology is so wide. It starts with agriculture, it ends with pharma, and in between significant technology on different aspects. So our advice is to go to the right direction, to have a strategy how to do so, to raise the funds from the right persons, right partnership, strategic if you can, and then to move fast.
Yeah, I think the capital around the world, and particularly in Canada, there's 2 pressures happening. One is that investors have, up till now, have invested based on very little earnings. So you're seeing a lot of the acquisitions happen at 49 times earnings. And if I showed you a table of all the multiples, it would blow your mind. But what's happening now is that these companies are going public, and they're having to report earnings. And the market isn't there yet. So there's going to be a lot of financial pressure on LPs to produce and to find revenue because they need to report on it. That's one. The second thing is that the capital markets now are moving down to the US, and they're starting to get ready for the CBD market in the US. So capital is becoming more competitive, and they're also looking for more IP. In my opinion, if Israel decides to take the leadership role, you could be the Silicon Valley of cannabis. Now, our view is that in 24 months or even less, the US market will open up. And when it does, you're going to see the capital pouring into either Israel or it's going to be in Silicon Valley. And it depends on where you decide to focus. The number of companies I met in the last 2 days, it was very interesting to observe that within one company, they do about 10 different things. And so that's what happens when you're an innovative person or a researcher, is every time you have IP, you form another company. The challenge is that that in order to really monetize, you're going to have to focus. And for the capital markets to understand where you play in the value chain, it's going to require focus. So my advice to most of the entrepreneurs that I met was, what's the story, what's the play, and where are you going to focus within the value chain so people can simply understand what they're investing in. So I think those two areas, I hope that's helpful, because I think you have a real opportunity here to take a leadership role.
One last question, because we're out of time. We can sit on stage until the evening and talk about the experience that we have. I can tell you on a personal aspect that we're trying to reach out to talk to each other. We cannot do it because everything is hectic. We're going around the world. What your experience you have, we experienced. We have the same experience. So it's amazing what's going on. But I want to just to finalize with the last amazing thing that just was published about the partnership with Deloitte and Headset and Nielsen. If you could speak a little bit and say what is the purpose and what are we aiming by doing so, because it's something that's really amazing.
So what we're really proud of is Deloitte's wanting to lead the industry. And I can't say that about all the firms because cannabis obviously is a controversial category. And we decided 5-6 years ago that we were not only going to take a leadership position, but we were going to publish. And if you haven't seen it yet, we have our cannabis report that launched last June, that pre-legalization in Canada. And May 1st, we will launch the Health and Wellness and Edibles report, which looks at the Canadian market and also compares it to the US market. So you're all welcome to get a hold of it. One of the things that was really important to us is to keep our leadership role. And for those here who may know Headset, Deloitte, Headset, and Nielsen in Canada struck a deal. And the strategic deal was for Headset to gather the point of sale data at the retail level. Nielsen is going to collect the SKU level data at the wholesale level, and Deloitte is going to aggregate all that data. So what that means is when Deloitte does a deal for a client, we're going to integrate these proprietary data sets into the deal thesis. We're going to turn around and resell the data to governments and to clients to try and piece the market together across the country. Headset also has a 20% investment from Canopy Rivers, and so we have a number of players at the table to be able to say, we understand the cannabis market well, and we can advise on this market. Because one of the challenges right now that's happening both in Canada and the US, and I expect this in every other market that legalizes, the lack of data is driving a lot of myths in the market. So people are working on anecdotal evidence, and we want to bring more of a data-driven approach. So 2 weeks ago, we launched and announced the Strategic Alliance, and now we're getting ready to move down to the US.
So that's what we do, and we discussed the next report we bring in after the May one that comes. We're going to be focused on innovation and technology. So we're going to describe different technologies that are going to serve the cannabis industry, and we're looking forward. So thank you very much for joining and coming to Israel, and thank you all.
Nadav, Jennifer, thank you so much.